From the School of Life Foundation, this is another episode of What You Given, a broadcast based on the invitation, find what brings you joy and match it to the needs of the world. This becomes your gift. Everyone has something inside of themselves to give, and I want to know, what are you giving? In my interviews, we meet people from all walks of life. I am Jack Rolfe, and on the show today, we have Chandler Rogers. Hello, Chandler.
Hey, Jack. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for joining in. Really excited for this conversation.
Happy to be here.
Today. Awesome. Good deal. So let's jump right into it, and we'll kind of warm things up a little bit here. Tell us about your family a little bit.
Yeah. I was super lucky to be raised with an awesome family. So I'm the oldest of 5 kids. My family has moved around a bunch growing up. So one thing about me that's kind of quirky is I never really know how to answer that question, where I'm from. You grew up, Arizona, California, Wisconsin, Washington, Missouri. And they currently just moved back to Arizona, which is kind of a home base and where my parents are from. And so, got siblings that are out of the house, still in the house. But yeah, being the oldest of 5, I think, came to have a lot of love for my siblings, for my family, and was ultimately just super blessed growing up in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've got some different experiences, I'm sure, from moving around and also with your siblings there. Chandler, let's expand that a little bit further. I know you're married. Tell me about your wife.
That's right. Yeah. My wife, Jade, and I have been married, almost 3 years now. And she, so funny enough, on terms of the where we're from question, first thing that we bonded over, she was like, I don't know, my family moved around a bunch, and they're military. My family's not military, but we kind of had that connection, and their family had moved around a whole lot. I'm actually tuning in from Hawaii right now because they live out here and we're visiting them. So I have no complaints there, but Jade is awesome and has been a huge blessing in my life and a huge part, I think, of my story in terms of what I'm giving to the world and the things that we'll talk about today.
Well, that's fantastic. And yes, I'll just add to it. Anytime you can do a podcast interview from Hawaii, you're going to be okay, right?
That's right.
And so I want to stay there for just a minute. How did you guys meet?
Yeah. So we were both going to school at BYU in Utah. And we were volunteering on a project to help people that have disabilities to have better mobility around campus. So the whole goal was to try to make it so people in wheelchairs and crutches can cross, from one end to the other a lot easier than today. And BYU kind of sits on a mountain, so it's pretty bad for accessibility. Yeah. And she was the project lead, and so I got put on her team. And the organization kind of gave her my number, and she texted me, to coordinate kind of me joining the team and when I can meet up. And yeah, that project didn't make it too far, unfortunately, because we started dating pretty quickly and really just hit it off.
That is fantastic. Well, meeting by doing service, that's a good way to start things off. And what a wonderful project that kind of started that out, but it ended up being an even bigger and more wonderful project for you, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, even though that specific project didn't, we didn't work on it for super long and other people kind of took it over. It definitely set a tone for who we were both trying to become. And that's something I really admired in her early on, was she had a very clear idea of what she wanted to give to the world. And I was trying to figure that out too, but I knew that I wanted that. And I think that's been really key in our relationship.
Well, that's fantastic. And on that note of serving and helping others, that's a good segue into what I want to focus on here on today's podcast. And that's what's going on in your life, something you're very passionate about. And so I'm going to kick it off that way, Chandler. I'm just going to turn it over to you. Why don't you tell the listeners here today a little bit about your yourself, the journey you've been on, and where you're at now and where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to start, let's talk about pornography.
Okay.
As a wake-up call.
Yeah.
In case anyone was snoozing in the first few minutes here. So I mentioned I grew up with an awesome family in a religious household, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I always had this desire to be a good person, to live my life in a way that I can be proud of. And something I started struggling with in high school was pornography. And I really just felt through that challenge that I was not fully in line with who I was trying to become. And this wasn't something that I'd ever, sought after. And lots of people, have challenges with pornography and various views on it. But for me, I just didn't like how it made me feel. And I didn't like how it had started to impact my relationships. And it was a very secretive thing as I was trying to overcome it. I really didn't know who I could trust, even though I had this awesome relationship with my family. And this became a really big personal challenge for me, where I just continued to feel this shattered self-confidence, you could say, where I felt like I had the ability to succeed and that I was able to reach my goals in these other areas of my life as I was, going through school and sports and other things. But I continued to struggle, and it had become a compulsive habit that I really was struggling to break. And there was a lot of times where I just was feeling really, really lonely and really upset with myself at trying to break this habit. And it was kind of through this journey that I ended up starting to realize that I can't do everything alone. I guess I've always been independent as the oldest kid, right? Trying to prove myself. And I felt like I could, learn pretty quickly at whatever it was in school or in other areas. But this, for some reason, it just kept feeling I was being kicked to the curb and conquered by something that I couldn't get control for myself over. And I didn't like that. But it started to teach me, both with my relationship with God and just, I think, in a more general sense of humility, that I can't, do this alone. And so I ended up talking to my mom and telling her and just sharing kind of what I was dealing with, and eventually got involved with this group-based program with other guys who were also trying to overcome unwanted pornography habits. And that was really kind of a catalyst in my journey, where I realized for the first time that there were other people who also had good things going for them, who on the outside you wouldn't know that they have any struggles at all, whether it's this topic or anything else, but who all were struggling and had the same goal, and they cared about changing. And that was really, really big for me, and being able to connect with those other peers and to start to work together with them and holding each other accountable. So not just realizing that I wasn't alone, but also realizing that I didn't have to walk the path of self-improvement alone. And I think a big part of this story too was starting to look at myself differently and not shaming myself or hating myself because I had this, thing that I was trying to work through. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, maybe you can relate, whether it's a challenge like pornography or something totally different that you don't like about yourself or wish was different. I learned, at least for me, that it wasn't productive to just hate that and wish that it was different or beat myself up when I wasn't perfect. But especially as I started to band together with these other guys, I realized that there's a lot of power in being patient and humble, and realizing that progress shouldn't really be defined by if we're perfect at whatever we're measuring, but how consistent we are at pointing ourselves in the right direction and trying. And so I think that was a big part there in the story. Should I keep going? Anything you want to jump in on?
I've got a few things, but I want you to keep going, and we'll circle back.
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep this going.
Yeah. So fast forward, and I'm, transitioning out of the house. I went and served a 2-year mission for the LDS Church in New York City. And I love New York. It was an amazing experience. Something that I struggled with during that time period, though, I had made a lot of progress in terms of kind of kicking the pornography habit, but it kind of started to come back on the mission out there. And that was something that I had a lot of difficulty with trying to process that, because I felt really hypocritical. The reason why I went and wanted to serve a mission was really because I felt in my heart that I have something to give, that I believe in helping other people get closer to God. And I wanted to go and serve. And I felt this like bit of unworthiness, I guess, or I just felt like I wasn't necessarily ready or capable of being able to help serve others, because I was still starting to struggle again with the habits that I had been, grappling with for so long. And so this new theme started to emerge through that experience. And as I came back and I started college at BYU, it was this recurring theme of like, how can I be the person I want to be in the world and make the impact I want to make if I'm still dealing with my own stuff, And it wasn't just pornography, it was other things that I was also just kind of looking at myself and feeling like I need to be better, but it was in this unhealthy type of way. And it was really, I think, these learnings that I think started to solidify as I was in my first couple of years at college, that is just a lie. Like, I don't need to be perfect to be able to make an impact in the world and to help others. And even though I'm still working myself on, becoming who I want to be in terms of aligning my behaviors and daily actions with my values, it's okay to be in a state of, work in progress. And in fact, there's actually huge gains that you can get from turning outwards and starting to help others, that in turns, helps yourself and makes your own progress easier. And this was really what led to me starting to work on the project that I know that, I'd mentioned to you. I was working on an app called Relay. And this is really where that all started. Relay essentially is an app that helps match people with other peers who are in the same boat, and helps them find deeper connection and accountability to be successful. And we focus mostly on people who are trying to overcome unwanted sexual behavior, pornography habits, and have recently started expanding to other stigmatized issues like eating disorders or other things like that. And the desire to work on this came from realizing that, I met all these friends, all these people who were also struggling with either the same challenge as me or different challenges. On the outside, it was never apparent. And starting to realize that I was able to help them, and it was helping me when I was turning outwards and not just, beating myself up, but actually trying to rally together with these people and work towards who we all were trying to become. I think this was the powerful insight that really motivated me. And I looked around, and basically it felt like so many people are still struggling alone. And that kept bothering me because I had felt that myself. Whatever it is, so many people are dealing with these stigmatized, sensitive issues in isolation. And I fundamentally believe that God didn't put us on this earth to walk the journey alone. I love the premise of the podcast that everyone has something to give. And I think it's exactly that helped me understand that you can give, but while you're in the process of becoming. And that was really the catalyst for starting to work on Relay, to build a tool that makes that easier for people to get that support and give it.
So we'll jump in and learn more about the tool here in a minute, but I'm going to back up now. And first of all, thank you, Chandler, for being open and transparent about your journey in the school of life. And some things you mentioned, there's a lot of people, first of all, that feel alone. There's a lot of people, well, actually all of us are dealing with some kind of challenge or multiple challenges. And we tend to keep those inside to ourselves. And then we also, the third thing to that is we beat ourselves up. In the School of Life Foundation, our curriculum's called Learn to School Your Toughest Opponent, which is ourselves.
Yeah.
And so loneliness, keeping things inside, letting our toughest opponent beat us up. How did you get through that? I mean, you mentioned a little bit about connection with others and that type of thing, but what could you share with those listening right now to work through those things?
Yeah. Yeah, this is such an interesting question because I feel like it has a lot of layers. And I think I've alluded at some of the principles that maybe I'll just touch on some more, go deeper on. I think the first one is really getting clear on on what our definition for self-success is, because I realized that my definition maybe wasn't exactly where it should be. And because of that, it allowed me to develop mindsets and perspectives that weren't necessarily healthy or productive for both making progress towards where I actually wanted to go. Like, it was actually hindering me, and it wasn't making me happy in the process. Like, it was just rough. And so I know this is a bit of like nebulous of a concept, but to the extent that I think you can sit down and try to really articulate and understand, like, what am I measuring myself against? And I'm not advocating for, people to just loosen your standards or ideals or goals of who you're trying to be. But I do think there is something to be said about building momentum and understanding that it's okay to be a work in progress, like at a very high level. It's okay that you may have this definition, but you're kind of in a work in progress towards that direction. But then more specifically, like being able to know that, maybe that if I'm trying to, whether it's quitting an unwanted habit or starting a new habit, right? Maybe it's exercising every day or trying to achieve, some level of success through school or other endeavors, realizing that if I'm not perfect at that today, it doesn't need to, like, my definition of a success shouldn't dictate that I'm therefore failing today. I think changing that definition to be more enabling was able to help me build momentum in the right direction. So that was definitely one key principle.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate you digging deeper a little bit there. And, I just want to repeat some of that, for individuals to find more clarity in their life and defining that self-success that you talked about. And then you've used the word a few times here about perfect. And I think we all think we need to be perfect, right? And you've really hit upon that. I just want to reinforce it that we don't have to be. And now that doesn't mean that we can't be continually trying to improve ourselves. That, I think that's a big part of life. But we don't have to be there to the end all to still make a difference and share your gift to the world. And we'll talk a little bit more about your gift to the world here in a minute. So I appreciate you outlining that a little further. That's I was hoping we'd flush that out a little more. And so that was really good. And so you're moving along, you're back at BYU in school now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was in a computer science class that the idea came forward. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I've been stewing on these like general insights that we're talking about right now for a long time because of my own personal experiences. But then separate from that, I was trying to figure out what the heck do I want to do with my life? What am I going to study? What do I want to do for work?
Right.
And I always had this interest in technology, but hadn't really dove in deep into coding or anything like that. I hadn't built something before. But it was actually a buddy that I had met in New York who we were in this CS class together. And essentially the premise of the class was you can choose whatever you want to build, whatever type of product, it just has to use these certain frameworks or technologies. And it's a very like experiential way of learning programming, at least in this class. And so I essentially reached out to this friend and I said, hey, like, what if we chose something that could potentially like address a real problem that people would actually use? Because I think the common precedent was people would just, come up with a fun, whimsical idea and just build, the website or whatever. And I was like, well, what if we actually think deeper about, something, and it would have to be an app or a website, right? That could help add value to people's lives in some way. And I kind of pitched them on a few different ideas and we talked about a few of them. And we actually went with something totally different than Relay. So it was not Relay. It was not helping people overcoming these sensitive issues to band together and stay accountable and connected. And so we kind of worked at, I won't go into what the project was. It was just very different, right? And at the end of the semester, not much had come from it because I think we had just kind of gotten sidetracked into checking the boxes to get a good grade. But we came to the end and we kind of talked and I was like, it would kind of be cool to just actually build something though. Like it was good that we, got through the class and got a good grade, but it feels like it could actually be a fun, worthwhile project to just do this because we want to. And so he's like, yeah, like I agree. And so we kind of reconvened, re-looked at like the ideas we talked about, and we talked about basically the concept of relay, how so many people are struggling alone, whether it's cost or courage. A lot of people don't end up in a group type program for overcoming, these type of challenges. And we wanted to build something that would make that easier and more accessible to people. And so, yeah, it's kind of spun out of the class. And then our whole last year of our undergrad, we actually got a year's worth of credit through this program that BYU was just starting for startups, essentially for new companies, that allowed us to work full time on it. And it's now our full-time job now that we've graduated. And so it became, this class project to a side project to our, full-time passion and what we're trying to do and helping the world work together to become their best selves.
That's phenomenal. And I want to touch on a couple of things that come to my mind as you shared that part of your journey, Chandler. The first one is, I feel deeply it's important that we're always involved with education. Now, whether that is going to a college or university or some kind of a trade school or just studying on your own.
Yeah, self-learning.
If we are educating ourselves, I believe we can be inspired. And through that inspiration, we have what I call these moments where our soul speaks to us, like you did and your friend. And if we listen and have the courage to act, then we can go on and create. And I believe we all have an inner part of us to create. And as we do that, our gift to the world becomes more pronounced, and we're able to move that forward. And so, I appreciate you bringing that forward. You got thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, one other piece that really sticks out is you're saying that kind of like parallel to this. I had started to do some internships at a startup that was building essentially a marketplace for the moving industry to make it easier for people to book moves, to get quotes without someone having to come into your home, like all this stuff. And I was working there for a couple of years. This was all like while I was in college. And that was really where I started to get this more solidified idea of, wow, like I really love the idea of building new products, and specifically software products that help address underserved needs. But, I wasn't particularly passionate about moving. Although I'd moved a lot. I didn't feel like it was the type of clear impact that, I don't know, it didn't fulfill me as much. And so, yeah, it was as I was engaged in this process of hands-on learning at this company, and then as I was taking these intro, programming classes at college and starting to think about, like, I feel really fulfilled and energized by this idea of creating, just like you're talking about. And I think I've always felt that, but this was starting to really put it into a different light. And then it was kind of in parallel with these other insights and thoughts I was having about my own personal challenges and all the people I'd come to know and talk to them about their experiences and all the similarities and the pain points they were facing. Those two concepts kind of married into like, let's build something. Like, let's go and try to help solve this, at least to some degree.
Yeah, that's great. We got to put ourselves out there. And there's a quote that I love from Joel Arthur Barker. And he stated that vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. But vision with action can change the world. And so that vision part is when our soul is speaking to us. We're receiving this inspiration by putting ourselves out there. Then we got to have the courage to act upon it. And when we do that, we literally can change the world. And even if it's just changing the world, and not just, but if it's changing the world for one person, that makes the world a better place. And then it's a better place for all of us. And now I know you're changing the world for more than one person. And so you have this entrepreneur path, and you're still on it. I mean, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs forever. And, you go through all the ups and the downs, but it's brought you to the day of today where you're at with the Relay app. And so why don't you explain to us what the app is and what you're hoping to accomplish at this point in the phase of it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. So I kind of touched a little on the vision. We want to make it really easy for people who are struggling alone to stop struggling alone,
Yeah.
to help them make the change they're trying to make, um, alongside peers who have the same goal. And so what that looks like is, you download the app and you come in and answer a few questions. And this is like, let's say I don't have any type of support group that I'm currently working with, or a therapist or anything. We help match someone into a group of others that are on the same path as them in terms of what they're trying to change, and then some other similar characteristics like gender, age, etc. The nice thing is, instead of having to walk into a room full of people, which is maybe the alternative of seeking help in a group type setting, I can essentially stay private and somewhat anonymous, although we are trying to emphasize connection, which requires, not being totally 100% masked behind a screen. Like you said, you have to put yourself out there a little. People can control, right? Like I can use my real first name, I can set a pseudonym, and so people can feel a little safer in starting to engage with this group of peers. And it's, there's no weekly meetings or anything that you have to show your face, so it's very approachable. And once I'm in the group, what the app will help me do is a few key things. One really important thing that's foundational is just emotional awareness and being able to understand our triggers and other things that set us back. Because often with any type of compulsive behavior or other type of difficulty, can be traced back to, our stress, anxiety, boredom, loneliness, like all the things that may affect us because of the natural, day-to-day things that we're facing. And how we recognize and deal with those is really important, right? So we have a way for users to be able to track that. And one thing that we're trying to do, though, is reduce the friction to allow you to reach out when you need it the most. Because I think something a lot of people relate to is maybe you do have a couple people that you could text or turn to, some friends that you've opened up to, or family members. But how often do we actually pick up the phone, send a message, or make a call when we actually aren't doing well? We don't do it very often, unfortunately, because we don't want to be a burden, or again, that awareness is really difficult to be able to put that into words. And so there's a red flag button that people can use in the app with just one tap. The group gets notified, so that everyone can jump in and show some support. It's been really cool to see. We launched the app back in September. We've had over 1,000 users on the app to date. And there's been some cool stories, specifically with people who were going in to do their feelings check-in, right? And they realize that they're feeling off. The app helps them throw a red flag, and it's like midnight. And then all of a sudden 3 people jump on and they're like, "Hey man, you okay? Like, talk to me." Which is so cool to see. It's not, group therapy. This isn't a therapy-based program or anything like that, but it's giving you a tighter knit support system in a safe environment that you haven't had to date to help you as you're trying to work through this behavioral change. And there's other elements of the app that, we could get into, but just for sake of summary, you can set and track your personal goals and things that you're working on. So, for me, if I'm trying to overcome pornography, I might actually be focused on some lower level things that could help me be more successful at that, like not using social media or getting to bed on time, getting good exercise. Like all those things help me regulate in a healthier way so that I'm less susceptible or vulnerable to acting out. And this applies for a lot of different things. And I can kind of track that all together alongside my team, so they can kind of keep me motivated and keep me accountable. And I think that's been one of the most powerful parts of the app today.
Chandler, you mentioned the team. I'm going to ask you to go a little bit further into that. I've listened to some other podcasts you've been on, and I think that's it's fascinating why you chose the word team. And then also share a little bit, as I've listened to some other of the stories about when this red flag goes up, how quickly your team comes to your side, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to the word team, we thought a lot about the verbiage that we used and the naming around the app. And we chose relay because of the idea of team that it means, and a relay race for comparison. It is something that, you're running your own leg of the journey. Like it's still very much your journey. No one's going to carry you for you, but you're on a team that's all working towards the same goal, and you can help each other. And that's really what the focus of relay is. It's not just a support group in the sense of venting and whining and we're all here to just validate each other. the validation is important, certainly, and it can feel helpful to have, I think, people who can show that understanding, but there's purpose behind it. We're actually working towards something together. And it's gentle. It's not this high stakes, right? Like stressful, like I'm going to let them down. We're on the same team. We all are going to make mistakes in this definition of perfect that we were talking about earlier. We're all kind of working on this together, like a team. And I think that's been a really powerful concept for us to continue to hone in on. And then, yeah, with the red flag concept and even other ways in the app, these aren't like automated people. So I won't lie, it's not like you're at any minute of the day, there's nothing that's going to force us for someone who's in Hawaii on vacation to pick up their phone and respond to you within 30 seconds. Right. But, a lot of people have their phones on them. I think the reason why we see people jumping in though, so willingly is, like I said, you sometimes, it feels good to be needed, and it helps you, especially if you know that you deal with the same thing and someone that is raising up that flag and saying, hey, I'm not doing well right now. I think it's really energizing and motivating to say, let me jump in and just, chat with them. I think it's one of the ways that we're helping people not just get support yourself in the app, but also give it as well. And like I've learned with my own journey, I think that's actually really key to the healing process, is being able to have lightweight, easy ways to help others where you don't have to be an expert. And even if you don't, get to the phone within 30 seconds, you're able to still pop in and check in on them. And what's cool too, is I can see, even if someone doesn't raise a red flag, I can kind of see, how their goals are doing, or if it looks like they recorded that they were feeling stressed or lonely, but they didn't reach out, I can reach out to them and ask them how they're doing. And so we're providing that visibility that empowers these teams to really be there for each other.
That's wonderful. And yeah, human connection is so vital with everything, and especially everything you're talking about. And I'm going to ask you, has it evolved, or can it evolve if individuals in the team want to go a little further and actually meet each other or see each other, so there's a little more connection? How does that work?
Yeah, that's something that we've thought a lot about. And it was funny, one of the very first pilot groups we did, there was like 30 people. They weren't all in the same group. There was like 4 groups, but it was 30 people. And all of a sudden someone one day was like, hey, can we all like meet up, because everyone we selected for the pilot was in the same city that we were in Utah. And we actually had 12 people come over to me and my wife's house, and we had a game night. And it was awesome. It was so cool to actually meet these people, and not everyone felt comfortable. So it was a no pressure, opt-in type of thing.
Right.
But I think it was really surprising to me that I don't think people want to stay hidden. It's just how you become not hidden in a safe way that's not scary is really important. And so our vision with the app is to really allow people to opt in to more connection as they're ready and as they're able, but not force anyone. So right now, today, there's no built-in way in the app, but that's something that we're going to work towards. Is, maybe I want to like set a real profile as opposed to a avatar image for my profile image. If you feel comfortable with that, do it. Like I said, if you feel comfortable with your first name, great. If you don't, providing a way for users as they're feeling comfortable to opt into more connection to get the full power of healing, I think is a principle that we're definitely striving to build towards.
I like how the app and the mission of the app is evolving. It's it's a living, breathing thing, and it's got to continue to grow. And by growing, it just makes it even better. And so, a couple of things with that. First of all, for those listening today, in the show notes, there will be a link where you can go find out about the app and join up if you want to do that. But maybe you could just share that link while we're talking here too. So go ahead and do that for us, Chandler.
Yeah, let me go ahead and drop the link. There we go.
Wonderful. So yes, everybody, it's joinrelay.app, and I've been on the site, and I encourage you to do it. It really is easy to navigate and get right into it from there. And
Yeah, you
So
pretty much just download the app and it will have you answer those few questions. And if you're signing up for a group type that we're not automatically matching, you'll kind of be put on a wait list so that you can get an email or text whenever, for example, we have enough people to form a group for overcoming alcohol or something like that. So
yeah.
we're starting to expand. I kind of mentioned we started focusing on pornography groups, and that's been our core focus. But we built the app where it doesn't mention pornography anywhere in it. It's actually remarkably compatible with a variety of use cases. And so we're starting to expand and being able to fill a variety of groups. So someone could come in and indicate what type of group they're looking for. And then we help make that process really easy of getting connected.
So the app started out as a free app, and you've progressed to, I believe, a monthly subscription now. Could explain a little bit about that and how that came about and what's happening with it.
I'm glad you asked. This is really funny. So we launched free, and we were like, the mission here is to help a lot of people. So we're not going to charge money. And this was never going to be our full-time job. So it wasn't even about like I think that the first rational argument is like, okay, well, we need to pay ourselves so we can keep making an amazing product that actually helps people change their lives. But it wasn't even that was really the impetus to making it having some skin in the game. It was really noticing with the free groups that we had early on as we were testing, that, people download apps, half of them use it once, delete it, never come back. So how do we manage in this world where we're trying to form small groups of 8, essentially, if 4 of those people deleted the app after the first day? We just didn't have a good way to manage the life cycle and the turnover without it feeling really bumpy. And we had talked to a lot of clinicians and therapists, and we realized that there's actually a lot of psychology behind having some skin in the game when it comes to healing and behavioral change. Right. And so that we tested, and we wanted to see, it was our hypothesis. Like, I wonder if we just put a paywall, would the groups actually work better if we didn't change any of the features in the app? And it's not like the app sucked before that, but it was very hit and miss with engagement. And yeah, so that was the main reason we shifted, and we found out like, okay, that works a lot better because people are signing up because they're committed to change. And our mantra is really like, if you're not seeing the change that you want, or if it's not working for you, you don't have to continue to pay every month the rest of your life. You can cancel. But there is something to be said about, how committed are you to really seeing the change that you want in yourself. And the good thing is that you get to be with other people who also made that decision. But at the same time, if anyone can't afford $16 a month, please email me directly. I can give Jack my contact info to put in the show notes here. This is really a lot less about how we make a lot of money and a lot more about helping create the most effective teams possible in the app. And so I think that's been a really helpful part since we implemented that for people.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That sparked with me an impression. I hadn't planned on this, but I got a question I want to ask you. So, because maybe somebody's listening out there that could help. So with that along, what are the needs in your journey right now? Is it finances? Are there any needs to help you get to the next level at this point?
That's a great question. I think something we're realizing is there's a lot of people that, especially people who, like my story, who have been on this path for many years, whether it's overcoming pornography or something else.
Yeah.
And although you've been struggling alone, you probably have tried a number of different things, whether it's various programs or working with a therapist or other resources. We're starting to realize that kind of partnering with those type of groups has been really powerful as a combination. So we have a lot of therapists and group type programs that have partnered with Relay to offer our tool as a way to help them stay connected between meetings and to enhance and deepen their programs. And so I like one thing that was super helpful, if anyone has connections or knows, or is a part of like one of these programs, what we found is that people are very receptive to the idea of using Relay as a tool that helps enhance, for example, a 12-step program or something else, to help these groups get the maximum value with each other. So that's one thing. And I think honestly, the other thing that just really comes to mind as I think about that question is it's less about what we need, but I think I guess it is what would help us as like a business and this project to move forward. But But ironically, it's really about if you are in a position where you think you could benefit from having a tighter support system, better accountability with your peers, healing through deeper connection, try the product. If you don't like it, you don't need to continue using it. But I think what's helping us is talking to our users, getting feedback on what they love and what's not that great. Like you said, it's a living and breathing thing. And so as we've had people that are willing to take a leap, and you're not the first ones, like we've had over 1,000 people, like I've said, use the product now. And but it's people that are willing to say, you know, hey, I'm not 100% sure if this will be the thing that helps me make my personal breakthrough to the next level, but I'm going to give it a try. Go for it, and then communicate with us as we've, you know, reached out to gather their feedback and let us know all the ways in which it's been very helpful and all the ways in which we can change and improve. And that's in turn, I think, allowing us to really continue to hone in on something that a lot of people are saying is super, super helpful, because we have people that are listening that are willing to jump in and to help give it a try for themselves. And it's helping us in the process and other people, so that we can help more people next year and the year after to be able to jump in even easier.
So for those listening, you just heard Chandler explain kind of both sides there. And so as he did that, if something was whispered to your soul to move forward, do it. And there was the two sides. The one is any connections for Chandler to help with this journey on the app side of it there, as he explained, but also maybe even more deeply, if you're feeling moved to do it, to get involved, then don't hesitate, act upon that. And so Chandler, as we've been talking, we've been able to listen and hear a little bit about your skills, your talents, your desires. Brings me to the invitation of this show: find what brings you joy and match it to the needs of the world. How does Chandler Rogers define that in his life?
Yeah, I love that question. When I saw that invitation in writing before the show, it really hit me, because I really thought about my journey and everything that we've kind of covered today, that I feel like there's a massive need in the world around facilitating better connection and support and banding together around these difficult challenges. And I feel like my gifts and what I've kind of realized that I'm very blessed with, and where I can offer value, is organizing people and building products. And like, I think entrepreneurial by nature. I think that if I wasn't building Relay, I'd probably be building something else, but I've tried to match the skills of what I think I could be good at in terms of building to the needs that I saw around people that were struggling alone. And so for me, that's how I personally define that in my life, is trying to use my day-to-day work as a way to help. Like you said, if I help at least one person today feel like they have a stronger support system, to feel like they're not alone, and to help them make the change that they want to make, or to make progress towards that, not even if they're perfect at completing the change. I've matched my gifts with a need in the world. And that's 100% the most fulfilling thing I've ever felt, has been this journey with Relay, and starting to see that I've found something. Like I don't know how many other, guests are working on a company. And I don't think it has to be something like that feels this big, because I guess, before this, it was starting to happen in other ways, like where I was able to meet up with other couples or friends who were dealing with challenges in their marriages. And we were able to kind of minister and help them one-on-one, my wife and I, and hold them accountable, and almost a mini Relay team. And I think everyone is in a different position with their unique strengths and the needs around them to be able to do something on a really meaningful level. And I think right now, where I'm at, we're trying to continue to find how do we reach more of those people through Relay.
I'm grateful that you are sharing your gift with the world. And anyone listening to this episode today, I encourage you to discover your gift. And if you've already discovered it, either way, then develop it in sharing it with the world. And that's my ultimate goal, is that everyone in the world is discovering their gift and sharing it. And what a great world that would be as we do that. And so, Chandler, I've really, really enjoyed talking to you. We've reached that point in the show. It goes so quickly for me, where we need to bring this one to a close. But the exciting part of that is we get to what I call the golden nugget question. And that question is, if there was just one thing that those listening today would take away or learn from Chandler Rogers, whether it's something we've already talked about or something we haven't touched on yet, Chandler, what would be that one thing you would want them to take?
I questioned so many times with my personal challenges. Why am I going through this? Why am I struggling to become exactly who I want to be? And I never had any intentions of building Relay. That was something I could not have predicted or planned. And again, it doesn't necessarily, like, if it wasn't Relay, it doesn't mean that this lesson would be any different. But what I've learned is that sometimes our challenges and our trials are really, really central to our ability to help give to the world. And oftentimes you won't know that until much later, when it starts to happen. I think that it's so easy to just try to slide by and endure the difficult things in life that we're given. But my challenge, or I guess the one takeaway, is that there could, what might there be? What might there be available to you because of your trials, in terms of what you can give to those around you to fill a need in the world? What unique insights or empathy or positioning, or people that you've met, what things might be coming or have come because of significant trials that you've had to go through, and how can you leverage what you've learned and gained through those trials to help? Because I think that is the single biggest thing that I've learned in my journey so far is, it's not just for personal gain. I think there can be a lot to give to the world if we figure out how to turn our personal challenges into a lot more. And with that, I think the final element is, you're never too early on in your process of personal transformation to start to turn outwards and give. Like, we've talked a lot today on the show about the definition of perfect and then how you define success for yourself. I realized that I had a lot to start giving, even though I was still working through those challenges myself, that I didn't need to be an expert. I didn't need to have, quote unquote, overcome that challenge, that you are enough right now to be able to start giving or to continue giving, even while you're dealing with your own imperfections. And that's a good thing, because you'll continue to learn as you deal with these personal challenges, and you'll continue to have opportunities to help others. But from the get-go, as you're dealing with something, you don't have to wait 10 years, 20 years down the road to be an old person sitting in the rocking chair and say, back in my day, here's what I've learned. Now I can start sharing those nuggets you can give right now, wherever you're at.
I love that advice, Chandler. And I can say, just from what I've learned about you, in addition to our conversation today, that you're living the advice that you're giving. And it's interesting to me, Chandler, even at this young stage in your life, you have developed some sage wisdom. Now, it doesn't mean you know everything. None of us know everything,
certainly
right?
Don't. Yeah.
Yeah. But by living what you are teaching, that develops into to wisdom. And so grateful for you sharing your wisdom with us today. And thank you so much for taking the time to be
Thanks,
on the
Jack.
show. Yeah,
Appreciate
you
it.
are welcome. You are welcome. And for those listening today, remember that your heart feels for you, your mind reasons for you, but your soul speaks to you. Are you listening? Did you listen today? If so, what did you hear and what did you learn? will you now have the courage to act upon what you felt? Thank you for tuning in. Please follow us on your podcast app so that each new episode is always downloaded, ready for you to listen in, and then share the link with others. We would love to have you leave us a review and follow us on Instagram. A special thanks goes to our producers, Ben and Kayla Martin. Now it's time to move upward and onward and ask yourself, what you giving?